If you're tired of mainstream media outlets selecting news stories and events that don't appeal to Black America, then become a member of the UnBossed Network today, where we are the voice of Black America and providing coverage of events and news stories that you won't hear anywhere else. Visit theunbossednetwork.com to become a member today.
This is getting worse here in the city, and what Andy has as a plan just isn't working. He thinks it is, but it's not. And I want to talk about his plan a little more, but I want to play this clip for you first.
A lot, but when you look at the face of that little 9-year-old girl and realize she's one of nearly 800 people in the city of Columbus so far this year to be the victim of violence and survive.
To the family of the 9-year-old, this has to stop. This is unacceptable in our city, and I need everybody else to step up.
Since last June, violent crime in the city of Columbus has increased at record-setting levels. More than 200 more people have been the victims of felonious assaults than last year at this time. And the city has experienced nearly double the amount of homicides. Take a look at where all 66 homicides have happened across the city. So what do you have to say to those neighbors who have said, we've heard you before, Mayor, we've heard you say we're going to put an end to this violence, the community's going to come together, but they continue to see the violence increase?
Well, I think that's why today's announcement is so important. You know, it helps us make our approach even more comprehensive and really investing directly into young people with respect to programming.
In an effort to give youth an alternative to crime, Ginther announced several summer camp programs, late night basketball, free lunches, and free entry to city pools. Do you think some of these programs are going to target those kids, those youth who are causing a lot of the violence in the streets?
I certainly hope so, and we're going to be working, as you know, we're working with the courts, the judges, our suburban mayors, law enforcement, on putting together and expanding diversion efforts.
And keep in mind, the violent crime rate in the city of Columbus didn't start to spike until June of last year. That is something the mayor and police do not want to see repeat itself.
Things brought up by the mayor. I'm trying to get my words straight right here because the mayor, he pisses me the fuck off. I'm sorry. He really, really does. And for all of you that watch this show and say, DaVante, you cuss too much. Well, cussing keeps me stress-free and keeps me sane while doing this show. And sometimes you just need to cuss to get it all out. Cussing keeps me from doing a lot of different things, so I'm just going to continue to do it. But no. So in just the last year alone, you heard Lacey say that the violence began back in June of 2020. That was when everything really began to feel the ramifications of being shut down from COVID. I remember it was June 8th, I believe, June 8th or June 9th, the mayor had a press conference in the Linden area, in South Linden to be specific, at Linden Pride, outside on the corner of Cleveland Avenue and 11th. And they were talking about the rising homicide numbers then, almost a year ago. And almost a year ago to the date, in fact, just 11 months ago. And the mayor didn't have much of a plan then, nor does he have one now. But the issue with the mayor is that the only time he cares about Black Columbus is during election season. And the reason why we are getting all of these programs now, like late night basketball, he's trying to open up the polls, he's trying to put more free food and things out there for our children to have access to during the summer and all of that stuff. The only reason he's doing that is because it's election time, not for him, but it's election time for his council people. It's election time for Shannon Harton. It's election time not for Mitch Brown or Priscilla Tyson because they're retiring, but they've put Lourdes Patia in Priscilla's seat, and in Mitch's seat they put Nick Bankston in. And the only reason they are trying to move forward with all of this is because they believe if they do all of this, we'll vote for them. No, we aren't going to vote for you anymore because the number of homicides have doubled and are at an all-time record high. If we keep this up by the end of the year, we'll probably hit over 200 homicides, which will be the highest in the city's history. Right now, we have well over any number we've ever seen in the city's history of felonious assaults. It's double what it was last year at this time. And I am reminded of what Dr. King said. Dr. King said, violence is the love language of the oppressed. So I keep wondering to myself, and keep asking myself, why are people dying? And I know some of you will probably say, well, it's black people shooting black folks up. Well, black folks are probably shooting black folks up because we don't have good. Nobody's trying to invest in our communities. And when they do invest in our communities, it's all about gentrification, moving us out. Not only is it about moving us out of our neighborhoods, but they aren't worried about how we are getting our proper education. How, if we don't get the proper education we need, vis-a-vis, we can't get a good paying job. And if we can't get a good paying job, we can't pay our light bill. And if we can't pay our light bill and water bill and gas bill and can't put food on our table, then come on now, you get the picture. Then parents aren't in children's lives. And then when parents aren't in children's lives, you see all this violence among teens and things like this. But the question needs to become, what programs can we put in place? Well, I tell you this, our next story we're going to talk about is Safe Streets. I don't want to get into Safe Streets just yet, but I will say this about Safe Streets. It's a decent program. I said decent. I didn't say good. I didn't say bad. I'll say like the French say, comme ci, comme ça, not good, not bad. Bien, not good, not bad. So, with that being said, if we don't learn to, as one mother put it to me a couple weeks ago when I was out walking the community right after Micaiah Bryant was lynched by a Columbus police officer here in the city of Columbus who was 23 on the force for 15 months. Yes, I said after she was lynched by him. I had the opportunity to talk with a mother in South Linden. She's the mother of 4 kids. And one of the things she was explaining to me is that she doesn't allow her kids to go far from her or even across the street to play with their friends, is because she doesn't know what's going to happen if somebody's going to come by and shoot up, come in a drive-by retaliating against the house next door and shoot up the house next door, but a bullet accidentally hits the kid, and so on and so on. And I've heard so many of those stories, but not just that, we need to do better. And the only way we can do better is if we defund the Columbus Police Department. Notice I didn't say abolish the police department, ladies and gentlemen, because if we need the police. I don't care what nobody says. We need the police. We need good policing. We need good community policing. Community policing is what we need. And that's the problem with what's going on today, is we don't have good community policing. We never had good community policing. Over 75% of the department of officers who work for the Columbus Police Department don't even live within Columbus. And that's a big problem. They can't communicate with the community because they don't live in the community that they work in. That's a big problem. But we do need the police. We need good community policing, and that's why I'm not in favor of abolishing the police. But we need to defund the police. And what I mean by defund the police is they don't need their budget this year was $360 million. They don't need $360 million in their budget. They don't need 6 helicopters. We have more helicopters in our fleet of helicopters than Chicago and New York City combined. We have more helicopters than Chicago. And we are, as the mayor likes to tout, the 15th largest city in America. And yet we have 6 police helicopters. But those police helicopters spend time spelling CPD out in the sky, and nothing happens to them for spelling CPD out in the skies of Columbus. We need to defund the police. And here's how we need to defund them. We need to slash their budget by half. And with that, 360 million divided by 2 comes out to be roughly, everybody who doesn't know how to do quick math, $130 million. We need to take that $130 million, leaving $130 million with CPD. We need to take the $130 million that we are using to defund from them, and we need to invest that into parks and recs. We need to invest that into help and human services. Because I'm here to tell you today, I'm probably one of the only Black people in the city who will take the stance and say this. And that is, we here in the city of Columbus, we put way too much on our cops. We do. We ask them to play doctor and nurse. We ask them to play psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists when they come out to the scenes. They shouldn't have to do that. Their job is to protect and serve. And last time I checked, protecting and serving didn't mean that you needed to be able to play psychologists. You didn't need to be able to play psychiatrists. And because of this, and because we asked them to do all of this, now in the last 7 months, we have had 4 people killed at the hands of law enforcement here in this city. Casey Goodson Jr., Andre Hill, Miles Jackson, Micaiah Bryant. 4 people in 7 months. And each of those people, Casey Goodson Jr. and Andre Hill, were killed within days back in December, before the turn of the new year. Miles Jackson and Micaiah Bryant were killed just within 8 days of each other as well. We couldn't even begin to celebrate, rather, the little teensy tiny victory of Derek Chauvin being convicted guilty on all 3 charges, because moments prior to that, Micaiah's life was taken. Columbus Police Department needs to be defunded. But it's not going to be defunded as long as we allow people like Andy to keep convincing us that he's the right person for the job of running the city. Andy, you are not the right person to be running the city, because violence is at an all-time high in Columbus. It's time for a change. And the only way things are going to change is if we vote Andy's ass out. And not only do we vote Andy's ass out, but we vote everybody on city council out. We vote them all out. And we vote some real progressive change makers who are from the community, from these streets, who knows what life is like on these streets. We put them in office. But nothing changes if nothing changes. We see the corruptness that goes on inside of the halls of City Hall. We see how corrupt they are. We see how when CPD does kill a chow, that the mayor comes out and says takes the officer's side. The interim chief of police, Mike Woods, he comes out and says, my officers are trained to shoot and kill in center mass, because if we taught them to shoot in the leg, that area would just be too small and they couldn't see that. So they had to shoot Micaiah 4 times in the chest. And now the child won't get to hug her mother again, won't get to celebrate any more Christmases with her siblings, won't get to have any more Sunday or Thanksgiving dinners, won't get to do any of the things she loved to do. We really need to divest and defund the Columbus Police Department, or violence will continue to go up. I'm not saying the programs that the mayor has put in place aren't going to work, but clearly all this money they are spending, because they've spent millions upon tens of millions of dollars over the last few weeks, and really over the last few months. And they have not once chosen an organization with boots on the ground to put money into. If they were serious about fixing the problem with violence, they would have given hot violence money. They would have given mothers of murdered children of Columbus money. They would have given We Are Linden money. They would have given the Southfield area money. They would have given all these communities with boots on it, all these community organizations, rather, with boots on the ground, money to be able to fund real action, because with them having boots on the ground, they know how to speak the language of the people in their community. They know what their community needs. They know why the violence is happening. I just said it and tried to explain it y'all minutes ago. A lot of this violence is going on because people can't find jobs. A lot of this violence is going on because people can't afford to get an education, because they have to go on a computer and they aren't. It's not their fault, but they're illiterate and can't get on the computer. And if they aren't illiterate, they can't afford Wi-Fi. It's a real thing. I know they have a free Wi-Fi program now, but look at what areas of the city that is in. The King Lincoln District. How many folk that look like me and you, who aren't making 6 figures, live in a King Lincoln District that you know right now? Exactly. They don't have those real programs that could be effective in communities that need the actual help. And the violence will continue to rise. And a lot of people in the comments are saying they didn't vote for Andy. I'm glad they didn't. Andy has went on record saying he won't run again for mayor, but I don't buy that. But I could tell you what whether he runs again for mayor or not, he will not run unopposed again in this city for mayor. I can fucking promise you that. I'll bet money on that. He'll never run unopposed in this city for mayor again. And you can mark my word on this for as long as I'm black. Andy Ginther, you'll never run unopposed for mayor in this city again, so long as I have breath in my body, because it's time for a change, and you are not cutting it. The Civilian Review Board, we all love the ideal of it, and you came to us last year around election time after the police beat us half to death on national TV. Beat us half to damn death on national TV. But that's what they did to our ancestors too back in the 60s during the civil rights movement, except this time they didn't use water hoses and dogs. The water hoses was pepper spray and mace and that tear gas and whatever chemical they were launching and releasing from the SWAT vehicles. And the wooden bullets were the barking dogs. And then after they beat us to death, you said, "All right, we'll reform because we see how corrupt they are, and this isn't good PR for us. So we need a civilian review board." But the civilian review board you gave us didn't have anybody from the community in there. Most of those people on there, I could go down the list, and we will at some point, are all related to the city in some way. Janet Jackson, don't even get me started on that. The violence in the city, it won't end until we start investing in the communities and in organizations that have boots on the ground who actually communicates with the people in these communities each and every day.